Hello again everybody, once more welcome back to the land of dreams that is Leopard Street. Today, a little bit following on from building the bridge, I'm going to have a look at actually building Leopard Street on Leopard... anyway, never mind. So this is a direct follow on from the last one. I forgot to record a fancy opening, hence you've got me talking. Anyway, down to the cellar, let's get on with it. This is Leopard Street. In Leopard Street. Yeah. Right, so here we are. This is where we left off. A bus outside a cinema. Since then, a few small changes. We now have, get hold of this and get this in place, a library and a shop. Now the shop kit says put it there with a bit of trimming. However, you'll notice this ugly screw, so I'm actually going to be putting the shop there, and I'm probably going to be having the library there, little alleyway between them, slightly wider alleyway there, same down the other end. The alternative was try and bunch them all up and find another shop, but actually I'd rather space them out a bit. Now these come with pavement bases that fit under there. They will fit. They obviously don't fit the spacing I want now though, so they're not going to be used. So I need to make a pavement for down there. So the first thing I need to do is shift the bus, come up here, now onto that road, move these buildings out of the way. Doesn't really matter where they go for now, as long as they're out of the way. These have had some slight modifications made to them. The backs aren't glued on, and I've done a little bit of painting on the inside. I will do a video soon on how I do that, because the inside of this one needs a lot more work doing to it. And then where I've drilled the holes, it needs some lights fitting. And take the bridge out as well. So what I need to do is sort of key measurements is that depth at that end and at this end, because it's probably not square. The same for this side. And then I'm going to go back to the desk and I'm going to have a go at making some pavements. So I'll catch you back at the desk in a sec with some measurements. Okay, here we are back at the desk, complete with a cutting mat, which is probably going to send YouTube's compression algorithm absolutely barking. But there we go. So, there's some dimensions I need. It's going to be Metcalf paving card, but before I do that, I need to get some of this, which is 1mm grey board. Now this obviously isn't 600mm long, it's not even 300, so I'm going to have to cut a couple of lengths of this bit. So I'm going to start off with the basics. So I need to go for the rear pavement, which is the first one I'm going to do, 58mm wide. So I'm going to put this in fast forward, I'm going to mark this out and cut it, and I'll be back with you in a second. Yeah, so as I noted there, you don't need to watch me doing all this in real time. You've seen me cutting bits of cardboard before, and to be honest, cutting bits of cardboard isn't that interesting. There we have a classic case of measure twice, cut once, because I managed to get the dot in the wrong place. Anyway, on with the video. Okay, back. That's 4 lengths of that cut. They're close. Incidentally, new scalpel blade makes a huge difference. Got a whole pack of them turned up. Palaver of ordering those. So these are going to be placed end on end. That'll give me the length. Well, it won't quite give me the length. It'll almost give me the length I need. I'm going to leave the very end for last. This one's going to go in the middle, but I need to cut a corner out of this end. This has to fit around that large block of wood, so that's what I'm going to do next, and that's 44mm square, so I can do that, and that. Now it's not angling hesitation here, is where I've got to angle the ruler so I can see the markings on it with the reflections of the light. So these are going to go like so. 44 and 44. See, as I've mentioned, I had some lovely comments back actually on the last video on all this. Yeah, these kits really are brilliant for kit bashing. They're absolutely excellent for it. Well designed. Yeah, they go together really nicely. The two building kits, the shop and the library, which actually it's listed as a bank. You either have it as a very generic bank that nobody's heard of because they've made the name up, which is fair enough. NatWest, which has quite a modern looking fascia for it. Or you do what I've done, you make it as a library and mechanics institute. It just looks like that sort of stone building. So that's what I'm going to do. Right, that's a corner piece cut out. I'm going to check that fits. If that does fit, I'm going to cut another piece of this. I'm going to cut it in half and I'll cut the same thing. So I should be back in a mo. Okay, just want to shave just a fraction off here. What I've done is I measured this distance here as 58mm. It does taper slightly. I've made this square. A gap of a couple of millimeters this side against the back seam I don't care about. But I just need to shave this down just slightly along the front edge here. And this is so it does fit flush where I need it to. And we shall have a little look in a sec. So that comes off there. The same there because I want the front edge to be straight. Front has to be straight because it's going to get curbstones fitted. Let's go have a look at that. Yeah, so here I am around at the slightly more awkward to access piece at the back of the layout. So that is going to go in there. Now the purpose of this stuff, I don't want the pavement at the same height as that. I want it stepped up a bit. That is fraction. I mean, I think this is like 0.5mm. This is 1mm. There's a little lip. Another layer of that, then that on top, and that will fit. And also down this end you can see the gap, but it's going to be positioned that way. Let's go and cut the rest of it. Alright, so that fits. So the next thing to do is cut one of these in half. Actually, I'm going to cut the end piece out first, and then I can cut it in half. Of course, this is also going to need trimming slightly to fit. It should work quite nicely. And what this is going to give me is just a very hint of paving edging under here. It's going to be done at both sides, and then the bridge itself will be sat on this instead of directly onto the ground. So yeah, I mean, we'll see how well that looks when it's done. So that's going to need to go onto there. That also now needs slightly trimming. Well, that must be said, only very, very slightly, because there's a little bit of variation when you cut these things. So if I just trim this one just a little bit, angle like that, very, very fine sliver of card coming off. It'll do a couple of passes of this. I can avoid trying to cut through the ruler with it, that might help. Let's get rid of most of that, and then just trim. Same up here. And if you're cutting this sort of little sliver, a trick I found works quite nicely. Have the ruler go past the end. Then you can start on the ruler and slide down rather than trying to cut into it. So that's those two. What I now need to do is cut this across here. This is because I need to laminate these sections of card. So if you remember when I did the retaining walls, what I'm now going to do, glue that onto there. I can glue a full piece here, glue a full piece on the back, and that'll fit on the end. And this won't quite go to the end of the roadway, however, so what I'm going to do is lay this down and work out just how big a gap I need. So a bit more Bostik, because that also turned up. So we just run this round here. I will be using Copydex to stick this to the board, but I'm going to use Boss Stick to assemble it with. So that's that. That goes onto there like so. Put the thing over and just line it all up. And it's that edge that's going to face forwards is the datum. So get that bit nice and flat. Done, card pavement. So I need to go and do another little measurement. What I'm going to do is lay this on the end. I want to see how much of a gap I need to make this the right length. So I'll be back in a mo. Okay, so I need a strip about 5mm thick. Basically, little gap like that, and just a little bit of filler to go in there, which I'm going to cut out of this, and a similar piece to go on the back of it. So we shall do that. Here's a bit of that, bit of that, bit of that. So this is going to be, get it right, 58mm this way, and I can cut 2 strips out of it. Can get it so I can see what I'm doing. Not that being able to see what I'm doing has ever helped in the past, but you know what I mean. If I cut these slightly oversized, they can be trimmed once they're done. As you can probably tell, I'm making this pavement at the desk, not in situ. Accessibility to do it in situ is horrible, so I'm not doing it that way around. If you've got the opportunity to do things like this away from the desk, away from the layout rather, I would definitely say do them, and then you've just got a little bit of final fettling just to get it into place, rather than trying to reach over things. You can't really see what you're doing, and it gets awkward. So I'm a big fan of, where possible, do things the easy way. So that's that. I'll cut the same as this one. And again, if these are slightly oversized, I'm not too fussed, as I can trim the platform end slightly. So get rid of that. So one of those is going to go in there. I'm going to make it flush at the front. It'll overhang a little at the back. Not too bothered by that, because overhanging at the back I can deal with. I'll just trim it, and if it's a little rough at the end there, it doesn't actually matter. So again, a bit more Boss Stick. This edge here needs to be a bit thicker, because obviously it's going to have the thin strip and the rest of it. I don't need too much of this stuff, so that can go into there. These don't have to be perfect. Essentially, there's going to be a layer of cladding put on top of this, so that's why. Again, straighten it off on there, make the front smooth, or at least try to, as smooth as this desk is anyway. So that's that. And then it's the other long piece, which is over here. This is now getting slightly cumbersome to work with on the desk, but there we go, just because of the size of it. But here we can do the same thing, another little strip. Again, make that nice and wide so it'll grab it all. Yeah. There we go. Yeah. This edge here is the front, so that goes like that. And just push it in a little. That goes onto there. And again, if there's any slight gap at this point, I'm really not that bothered. I just want this to look right. Once this is done, I'm going to do another fit check, because, yeah, always check things fit. So this final piece of card can go on here. Because I've cut one end of it, it's not completely square. But again, that doesn't matter as long as it lines up at the front. But yeah, it's always worth checking. Don't measure something and then assume it'll fit. Ask me how I know that's going to be a problem if you go that way, but there we are. Never mind. This is going to need a little bit more work. So like I say, I'm going to put the Metcalfe paving slabs onto this, get the curbstone set up properly. It then needs the edge painting. This hasn't been done. The last bit of pavement I did was obviously around the retaining wall, and I haven't yet painted the edge of the curbstones on that, which I need to. Need to do that before the roadway goes down anyway. So I need to find a suitable matching paint. But, pavement. Let's go see how it fits. Yeah, not bad. There's a very slight gap at this side here, which doesn't bother me, to be honest. Bit of paint, bit of weathering, you'll never see that. So that fits, and it comes right to the end of the board, overhanging very, very slightly. If you look at, see that there? That does need trimming, so I'm going to trim that back about 3-4 mil. And then I've got to put the cladding on it, so I'm going to go and have a look at doing that. Alright, so next up it needs cladding. This is Metcalfe's M0055 paving. It comes in a couple of different styles, so what I need to do is find some suitable ones. That is too narrow, which is slightly unfortunate. That piece would be usable. Let's have a look. Oh, so are these. That's good. I like the fact those bits there are usable. I'm going to need 1, 2, 3 and a bit. And the bit at the end is going to be quite simple to do, so I'm not too bothered by that. So the first thing is cut this section out roughly. That'll do. I'm going to start at this end, and a little bit of a choice. Do I go for a curved end here? So there's not a lot I can do about that, unfortunately, so I might have to I'll go for a square end. I'll just carry it onto the next piece. So the first thing I need to do is trim one of these. Just gently and get it positioned exactly. If it's slightly ripped at the end there, I'm not too bothered. And I now need to cut this little end piece here off, exactly along the sort of the line, so to speak. And I can keep these because I can use these to make traffic islands or whatever later. It's that piece, same at this end. Here we go. And what we're going to do is I'm going to make a few of those, and they're just going to get stuck on the top here. Flush at the front. I'm going to leave the back as it is. I'm going to trim that down once they're all in place. So I'm going to get on with that, and I'll be back in a minute. Quick note. That doesn't work. Neither is turning it that way, so what I'm going to have to do is chop another little strip off this just to get the pavements to tessellate properly. So I'll do that and then carry on. Again, Bostik here is good. Copydex would work. It will stick this. What you have to watch is, even though it is a sort of latex based, it's obviously got a water base to it, and if you do it on paper that's too thin, it will distort it, because it will soak in a little bit and it'll rip. And I'm just making sure that the ends of this that are going to be exposed, I've got plenty of glue. I want the glue to ooze out a little bit, not much, just a little. And that goes on there. Press on that way, press it down firmly against the front. And then this edge here is the edge that's going to need a little bit of paint adding to it. Not much, just a little bit. And we're going to put this one on here and see how this goes. Yep, that'll fit nicely. And some buildings are going to sit on top of this, obviously, so I may end up having to paint little bits of this as building floor, or at least in a suitable neutral colour. It's also going to have holes drilled through it for lighting wires and all sorts of bits and pieces, but I'm trying to avoid going near wire at the moment. Partially because this channel's had plenty of wiring recently, and also because I've done plenty of wiring recently, and therefore I'm just spending a little bit of time away from wires. But there we go, it's flush at the front, that'll do. The other thing about painting it is it will cover over the few little bits where little joins come through as well. Help weather that. Now I'm going to need to cut a fourth one of these. I thought I was going to get away with 3 and a little bit, but I'm going to need a fourth and then chop that down to size. But I don't mind. This, I mean, it's card, it's cheap enough. I've got a fair bit of this stuff, so it's on there. Again, flush at the front. Will do, just adjust slightly. And you get some slight gluey marks on them, but that'll do. Right, I've got to cut one more piece of this to fit over the end. I do have more of it, which is helpful. So I'm gonna get this done, I'm gonna get this fitted, and then I'll trim it and we'll go and have a little look. So there we have a length of pavement. It just needs cutting at the back, trimming, so I shall start doing the trimming. So I'm going to start at the other end because the glue's had a little bit longer to dry. And here I can just use the card itself as a template, because I know the card template fits. Through that little strip. Yeah, so that's that. Obviously I've got to replicate the other side, but let's just have a quick look with the bridge in situ. So you see the bridge slightly overhangs that end piece, which I can cope with. I can live with that. The cinema is about there. And again, I'll put the library and the shop in about there. So that's what that's going to look like. I've got to go and do the other side, so I'm going to do that off camera, and we'll back shortly and we'll see what it all looks like. Right, so that's that in. I glued the little end bit of road on as well, just this final little piece here, which I think looks quite good. What's needed now is the pavement for this side, and in a dramatic change of tack, I'm not going to make you watch me build that. I've already done it before I started this. So that comes into there, and it goes down like so. There's a little bit of a gap at that side, but I can fill that. The bridge goes back in at the end, and that's basically the street scene. Yeah, there's a bit more that needs doing to it. Obviously the wing wall and that for the bridge needs doing. I'm going to put a retaining wall down here. Been thinking about what to put on this side. This is 80mm wide, and as you can see, it's a decent width. I've had a couple of suggestions. People online actually suggested putting like a newsagent kiosk in. I did wonder about a war memorial, Obviously this is 1930s layout, but there was sort of great misunderstanding #1 recent memory. Probably would mean cutting into the hillside though, so I'm going to leave that. All the way down there at the other end there's going to be another little townscape. I think I'm going to put it over there. It'll be a lot easier to see, it'll look better. So what I need for along here, I'm thinking of putting a wall with railings on top. Access to this area is basically from the road at the top. The sort of wall I'm thinking of, if you've seen parks in the UK, you'll have seen these low walls that have railings. They're about a foot and a half high, sort of rounded top or sort of chamfered tops. And they've either still got railings or they're a little bit higher and the railings have been removed, and they were removed during the Great Misunderstanding #2. So that's the sort of thing I'm thinking. That's going to get done. None of this is glued down yet, and that'll get done before that gets glued down, because it'll be glued to this and it'll be a lot easier to do away from the layout. That's it for this scenic area today. There's a lot of little jobs left to do. Street lighting, building lighting. That wing wall bit is probably the next bit. Then I've got the rest of the road to do going up there behind the huts, and that's out of the way. This needs a capping putting onto it. There's various bits that need painting. This little gap down here, that's going to be left. When I come to do the static grass on here, most of that'll get covered, and otherwise I'm going to put foliage and like clump foliage and stuff along there. This is going to be quite coarse ground because the angle of it, it's not the sort of grass anything's going to use for anything. Right, so that's that. What I'm going to do now is clear the detritus off the layout so we can run again. And I'm going to go run a few trains because there have been a couple of little updates. Nothing too serious. Let's put these signals back. The one at danger and the one to proceed with caution. Yeah, and we'll have a little look at what this looks like from the other side as well. Okay, back in a mo. Now, this is from the inside, so this is the more sort of normal viewing angle, the sort of bits of this you're going to see. So you can see you can't see a huge amount of it. It's just nice it's here, and so you go back a little bit, you can see there's something there. Where this tool case is, there's eventually going to be a road going under there, and you'll be able to like look down and see through bits of it. Have to be shaped to avoid the wires. This little bit in here needs to be completed. The idea is the road is sort of going to carry through, probably square because it'll just be easy with the curbstones. So it'll sort of come through here and turn, or it might come through here because it'll make the cobblestones easier. And I've got what to put in this side. This side's probably going to be another embankment coming up, the same as stuff that's going to be on here. So that little townscape, it'll continue. There probably won't be anything else that side. There might be something there. Not decided yet. Open to thoughts and comments. But that's a little bit of scenic work coming up. I'm going to be doing a video soon on what I do with these buildings to play around with them. Yeah, this one has got back on it still. I take that off. So inside I've added a little bit of paint. Floors, the inner walls. The idea is this is going to get lights fitted, and don't want you to be able to see the Metcalf cardboard through it. I need to think of something to paint the inside of the back scene with. Full depth building, I just paint the walls. Because this is so shallow, it needs something painting on there to look like the inside of a room. I'm going to find a way of standing somebody inside here when I get some lights on it, but that's for another day. But yeah, I'll do something on covering that. The pavement edges, yeah, they do need painting. There's a little bit of white visible here and there, and it'd be nice just to get it all in one colour. I think I've got a suitable colour for that. I'm going to do a little bit of experimentation. Like I say, there'll be a wall along here, so that'll be walled and stuck down a bit more. And a road. Meanwhile, we wander back over here. This is the sensor gantry you've seen. This is one you haven't seen that is now wired up. This is all now corrected so that this LED relates to the inner track, this one to the middle, this one to the outer track, and it all works. So I'm going to go switch on, we're going to run a couple of trains, we'll have a look at that, and that'll be that for today. So back in a sec. Okay, here we go. So the first test is going to be Scotsman onto the outermost loop, which is this one, where the friend sitting. So that point's set, got to set this one. Yeah, this one here is slightly more problematic. See, it's not going over all the way. I need to adjust that. This may need to come up and may need to be relayed, which is going to be incredibly annoying. Possibly as a chance to sort out a minor problem I've got there with the alignment. I might have to lift this bit as well. Basically just to get it out. Essentially it needs moving this way very, very slightly. Right, so everything else is set. Scotsman is selected, so let's run a train. And now we can watch her going past the new area. Woo! Some rumbles up. Yeah, it's looking reasonable, I think, anyway. And here she comes, and she's going to come under here, and it's going to trigger one of those relays. There we go. In she goes into the loop, quite happily. Now the relay resets. I've driven around to the end. She's actually got a little bit far. So what I'm going to do, because I'm driving her manually, I'm just going to put her into the stop section, which is that bit somewhere. As you can see, there's a fair bit of space there. Next up is going to be taking Chamontier, anyway, that one. She's going to go out, she's going to do a once around and up onto the incline. So she'll do that, and again we'll see what she's doing. And that one, just check all the route is set, which is that point, and that point. There we go. And off we. You've forgotten something. This seems to happen quite a bit. Yeah, I suspect it's the couplings on the coaches, because the loco's fine. She rode in fine with them the other day. I think it's the big D to the small coupling, and the height isn't brilliant. Let's see if that's got it. Yes. Take her slowly out the yard so I can make sure everything works. The video for Thursday should be progress on controlling the layout slightly. Yeah, I'm going to come up with a little box I can use to control a couple of the points. Is the idea. So change a couple of points there. And there she is, nice and slowly past the new area. And let's just build up a little bit of speed. Even though these very old trying era coaches, they do look quite nice. I mean, especially at this sort of distance. I mean, it's not particularly zoomed in. I'm not particularly zoomed in on it, so I'm quite happy with that. Resetting things so she goes up the incline. Lovely locomotive. Really do need to do something about the couplings. The plan, such as plans are around here, is possibly KDs on the ends of the rope and perhaps magnetic couplings on the inside, because the inside couplings are much cheaper that way. But nem pocket, whatever I do. That's her all the way up there. Drop that back. I could bring the Scotsman forwards. I'm not going to, because at some point I'm going to have to reverse her back in again. And everything else is basically pointing the wrong way to go into the loops. However, they do work. I mean, if I just wave my hands under there, they work nicely under that one. So that's just a little bit. I'm going to set another one going while I carry on wittering. So make sure that's set, that's set, that's set. And a K3 run, have a little run. Yeah, I need to finish weathering these wagons at some point. I mean, that's starting to become a fairly important job, I think. I've got a few others to do. Yeah, so what have we had this month then, or last month, since this is sort of a little bit of an update. So, a bit of scenic work, fair bit more wiring work. The loops are now in and working. I'm happy with those. I don't need to do anything else with those. Possibly just tidy that little area up there a little bit. Keep an eye on these wagons. I'm hoping, nothing certain yet, but hoping in the near future I will be receiving a new train, which I'm hoping to order later in the week. I'm not 100% sure where I'm going to put it, but never mind. It's basically going to be another goods train. In practice, that open wagon train, the 3NE wagons don't belong in that. There's a 5-plank Oxford Rail one at the back that doesn't belong in that, so it's going to be an alternative for that with an alternative locomotive. I'm sort of planning 2 block freight trains. I don't see any reason why I shouldn't have another one. It may well be one that needs to find another home somewhere. Possibly store it in that siding. It was something that occurred to me the other day. This layout, until it gets to the station, hasn't got any sidings other than that one. There's literally nowhere else to store trains on this, other than the loops. And obviously this side of the layout is designed to be able to store 8 trains and still run some. So there we go. And fairly obviously I can store some on the incline at the moment. I mean, I probably get about 5 trains up there at the minute. So we shall see. But that's basically it for this little update. Nice and simple. A little bit of scenic work. Obviously there's more still to do, but there we go. As the wonderful little K3 comes round. Otherwise, I shall leave you all to the rest of your week. Once again, likes, comments, shares, subscriptions, etc. As I was recording this, we're up at 920 subscribers, which is frankly astounding. Like counts are pretty good, view counts are pretty good. Yeah, all things concerned, I'm quite happy with this. We are going to be moving more back into the realm of scenery for a while. There's obviously a load still to do over there. The little townscape, I'd like to do a bit more work on there. There's a board to go in. Yeah, there's plenty coming up. It's going to keep me off the streets for a while anyway, put it that way. And fixing my little friend here as well, finding out what's wrong with my little friend and trying to quieten down Mr. Noisy. Anyway, that's quite enough waffling from me. Like I say, enjoy the rest of your week. I will catch you all in the next one, which will probably be the electronics video on Thursday, and I'll see you all probably Saturday for the next bit. So thank you very much, and goodbye.